everyone, Andrew here with new comic thoughts on Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. And this is written by Neil Gaiman and with art by Andy Kubert. Now, as a Batman fan, I've always wondered how could anyone actually end the story of The Dark Knight. Now, I grew up mostly with the Batman animated cartoon, but as time went on, I did eventually start reading the comics. But then there was Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. It's a weird storyline. It's kind of out of continuity, but in continuity. We're not even sure where it is. But it's written by Neil Gaiman, who's someone up until this point I haven't really read a lot of his stuff. I've never been really a big fan of his work. I like Kubert's art, but that's about it. I decided to read it, at least just because I'm a big fan of Batman and I wanted to see just whatever happened to him. And we're not even sure if this is what happened to him. Now, part 1 was pretty good. It's kind of a lead-in to part 2, really. That's all it does. It doesn't give any real answers or hints, possibly, as to what's going on. And it's basically the funeral of Batman. There are different stories and different people, and kind of switches up from Silver Age to Golden Age and all that crap. But it's a fairly good storyline. I actually quite enjoyed it. There's a brilliant twist with Alfred as the Joker, which isn't obviously in canon, but still, it was an awesome little twist there. And from that, I was pretty impressed. I must admit, it was very impressive. But part 2 is where it really just shines and just makes perfect sense of it all, and I loved it. See, now, in part 2, we find out that the woman who's talking to Batman is his mother, Martha Wayne, and that Bruce is having a near-death experience. Now, I'll admit that's a pretty simple idea. Oh, well, he's just having a near-death experience. He's just seeing his own mental funeral. But I gotta admit, it's actually a very nice twist, and Neil Gaiman apparently, I didn't even know this about him. He knows how to take a story that's very simple and just simply make it great, and not a lot of writers can do that, I'll admit. So, the story is pretty simple from there. Batman reflects on his life with his mother. We see a great moment where he says, I don't really believe in an afterlife. That, for me, was probably the best moment out of the entire storyline, just because he's the great detective, It makes sense that someone who always tries to make sense of things wouldn't just magically believe in an afterlife, because he's Batman. And I thought that was just a really nice moment. We get plenty of great moments, and really, it's fairly obvious here that Gaiman simply gets Batman. And I use the quotation marks of gets because I know it's a little hard to define how you get something, in a sense, that you understand it perfectly. And, Gaiman is clearly a fan, and he really appreciates the bold superhero that Batman is, because he tells all these little stories about how Batman saved someone or doesn't compromise, of how he insists on fighting no matter what, and it's just really great. He does a great use of all the characters that he can. I'll admit, I was disappointed that Jim Gordon doesn't really get a big scene, or that Barbara Gordon doesn't get a big scene. Like, they're both great characters that should have gotten a bigger scene, but they never really did. That was kind of disappointing, but also Nightwing doesn't really get a point. He gets a point as Robin. We also don't see Tim Drake or Jason Todd, but oh well. Now, for me, I gotta admit, I'm not the biggest fan of Andy Kubert. His style is kind of hit or miss for me. Sometimes it can be really good and really cool. Sometimes it's just okay. It's never really bad, though. But here, he does, as Neil Gaiman himself says, the impossible. Now, Gaiman strictly says, can you draw Joker in this panel like Brian Boland? Or in this quick little scene here, can you draw Batman like Jim Lee? And, this is obviously to reflect The Dark Knight, and it's really cool, He does an incredible job of it. I have no problems with the art at all. And the story, same here. Now, one thing that I really loved, again, for another moment in part 2, was Batman's mother's answer to, what does Batman get to be? What's his final reward? He doesn't go to heaven or hell. He just gets to be Batman. I'm not even going to try to explain it, because it's a little hard to explain. But it's a really cool twist there. Like, you know what? You just get to be Batman. That's all. I liked it. Now, the final scene of how the whole story closes is probably it's like a perfect way to end it, really. And that's the bat signal goes up high in the sky after Batman has gone over. He's said goodnight. He said goodnight to Gotham, to the Joker, to everyone. And he said goodnight to them in the form of the Goodnight Book while sitting on his mother's lap. Which was a nice little moment there, but anyway. So the bat signal goes up in the sky after Batman says goodnight to it at last. And then it comes down and transforms into hands and picks up the newborn Bruce Wayne. And that was just really cool and just a really brilliant moment for me. I thought that was just really awesome. But it kind of signifies that no matter what, this is like a never-ending cycle for Batman, that in each new generation he will become Batman again somehow, and I'm not even sure how it all works. Some people have made some assumptions like, well, that's the whole dark side thing and blah blah blah. I don't care, okay? I don't really care about DC's continuity bullshit. You know, Neil Gaiman simply writes a really cool storyline here. It's really well done. The art is spectacular, the best Andy Kubert has ever done. And overall, it's an incredible book. It's a must-have. It's simply, purely a must-have. 5 out of 5, everywhere, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100, whatever you want to call it. It's a must-have. Now, if you can't go out and get the 2 parts at your local comic book shop, then I'm urging you. To anyone who ever loved Batman, even if you just watched the cartoon a little bit, or if you like the movies, I'm urging you, please, check the hardcover out. It's up for pre-order on every book-selling site that I'm aware of. I pre-ordered my copy already from Barnes & Noble. But it's an absolutely incredible book. And, you know, if you've ever loved Batman, I have no doubts you'll at least enjoy it, to say the least. I'll admit, maybe not everyone's going to love it as much as I have. I already know a guy who thought it was just okay, but, you know, for me personally at least, it was an incredible book. And as a Batman fan, I was touched a lot. It had a lot of emotional power in it. And it was overall just a really great book in general, you know? So yeah, check out Whatever Happened to the Caped Crusader. It's an awesome storyline.